Thank you all for being here. I'm Ioulia, and I'm here to present our work on color-coded visual aids for learning unfamiliar virtual keyboards on behalf of my supervisor, Dr. Andreas Komninos, and Professor John Garofalakis. So mobile text entry is a core aspect in human-computer interaction and has an important role in everyday life. The QWERTY keyboard, the QWERTY layout, is frequently used to users' habits and not because it has been optimized for users' typing performance. Learning to type on soft keyboards is a very cognitively demanding process that requires notable efforts by the users. And while prior research has demonstrated the potential of optimized keyboards, their adoption remains low due to the significant learning curves and the struggle with reaching sufficient typing and accuracy rates from the users. So in this study, we explored whether color-coded visual aids can support the adoption of such novel keyboard layouts by supporting users' memory and spatial recognition. So, as I said, prior research has examined how novice users learn to type on unfamiliar layouts even before the advent of mobile devices and soft keyboards. And several recent studies have examined how users learn to type on such keyboards, tracking their performance across multiple sessions and modeling the resulting learning curves. Lately, simulation has also been used to model how users locate keys on novel virtual keyboards and estimate user learning costs. Previous work has explored visual cues mainly for real-time typing assistance, and to the best of our knowledge, no prior studies have investigated visual aids explicitly as a learning support mechanism to help users form mental associations with key locations on the novel layouts. For our study, we selected two optimized keyboard layouts, Opti2 and Fitally. We did not employ a randomized QWERTY layout as we wanted to instill an experience of something entirely new to the participants. And our aim was to investigate whether the use of color coding could assist users with remembering the positions of each letter within the two layouts. The main hypothesis was that if users were able to associate letters with colors while learning the new layout, this might reduce the search space when trying to recall the location of a key, thus enhancing their spatial memory. We divided each keyboard into 3 vertical zones and assigned a distinct color to each zone, and the system was developed as a responsive web application, which was accessible by mobile browsers at users' convenience, with no smart typing features implemented. So for our study, we recruited 27 participants, aged between 18 and 44, with mixed educational backgrounds. We employed a within subjects design, and participants were exposed to the two selected keyboard layouts, performing 2 sessions with the one keyboard before moving on to a further 2 with the other keyboard. Each session was separated from the previous one, but at least 12 hours, so we could reduce potential influence from short-term learning effects. Each participant received the visual aid during only one layout, either in the first session or the third one. Each session consisted of 10 blocks. Each block contained 5 phrases drawn from a very well-known dataset, the Enron dataset, and participants received no instructions regarding how to input these phrases and perform the experiment at their convenience remotely. To assess how participants adapted to the novel layouts, we analyzed key performance metrics like words per minute, interkey interval, minimum streak distance, and the number of backspaces. After each session, the participants completed an NASA TLX survey to assess their perceived workload, and the final questionnaire was administered to them after completing all sessions to assess their impressions of the color-coded keys on 4 dimensions: perceived usefulness, perceived ease of use, learning motivation, and learning satisfaction. We treated both layouts as functionally equivalent and divided the participants into 2 groups based on when they received the visual aid. So in this slide, the figures depict the calculated mean words per minute and interkey interval per block. In our case, interkey interval is more important as it reflects better the visual search time. and is not affected by confounding factors like the time needed to correct an error. Regarding words per minute, results showed a significant increase between the typing speed of the first and the second session for both groups, but no significant differences between the later sessions. These results indicate that the observed improvements are likely due to the initial adaptation to the unfamiliar layouts rather to the presence of the visual aid. In other words, in session one, participants needed to snap out of their QWERTY habits, which might have generated an impulse to look for a certain target or move their fingers to the familiar location on the keyboard. And this assumption is also supported by the lack of significant differences for the later sessions, particularly for the second group, which received the visual aid in the third session. As for inter-key interval, results confirm statistical differences across both session pairs, which also can be more plausibly attributed to the growing familiarity with the keyboards rather to the timing of the visual aid. It is also worth noting that both groups exhibited higher words per minute and lower inter-key interval in session 3 when they were introduced to a novel and unfamiliar keyboard rather than in session 1, suggesting further the relaxation of influence from the QWERTY experience. For accuracy, we computed the minimum string distance metric and the mean number of backspaces per block. Since the sentences in session 2 and 4 were longer than those in the other sessions, we normalized the computed Levenstein distance between the target and the submitted phrase by dividing it by the length of the target phrase. Statistical tests for both metrics revealed no significant differences for either groups, and taken together with the results for the text speed metrics, we can assume that these findings suggest that users' performance was not meaningfully influenced by the length of the transcribed sentences or the occurrence of errors. The results of the final questionnaire, which users completed upon finishing the last typing session, indicated that introducing the visual aid after the initial cognitive load of adapting to a new layout has been reduced was received more positively, and the aid could possibly act as a supporting tool for users' learning. NASA TLX results revealed no significant differences apart from the typing mental demand for group 1 between sessions and 2, a result which can also be attributed to the cognitive effort of a transition away from the QWERTY habits. So to summarize, in our study, we examined whether color coding and familiar keyboard layouts could support users in learning of these layouts over time. Quantitative metrics provided little evidence to suggest that the visual aid had a measurable effect. However, qualitative results provided an interesting perspective, showing that users who received the visual aid, group 2, at a later stage rated it more positively, which suggests that the timing of introducing the visual support affects its perceived helpfulness. When it was introduced too early, its effect might have been overshadowed by the cognitive load, but after an initial adjustment period, such visual aids may be embraced as helpful. And this is something that is also supported by the NASA TLX results, where significant differences were found only for the typing mental demand for session 1. Taken together, our findings imply that visual aids may not produce immediate performance benefits under high cognitive load, but could play a significant role in supporting users' learning, encouraging them to continue learning and reduce frustration when introduced after an initial familiarization session with the unknown interface. Nevertheless, several limitations of our short study should be acknowledged. Most of the participants were university students, and so our findings may not generalize to the general population, and especially to novices with truly no prior keyboard experience. And the most important limitation is that we only measured short-term learning, so we cannot demonstrate in this study whether color coding supports long-term retention. Hence, future work should assess long-term spatial memory and test different forms of visual support, include more diverse users, and explore the best timing for introducing such aids. To conclude, our study showed that even though visual aids didn't improve directly performance metrics, they have potential in improving user perception and learning when introduced after the initial cognitive load has been reduced. So future work should focus more on broader application of such aids to assess their true usefulness and effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ioulia. Any questions? Yes.
Interesting study to see whether color coding has any difference. I was wondering, first of all, what criteria did you choose to assign these colors? I think I noticed there were RGB, red, green, blue,
Yeah.
right? And we know that red has a different impact than green than blue, obviously. So the warmer color attracts attention more. Was there a specific assignment that you had in mind?
No, we selected the RGB colors as a first attempt to see if there is any effect of using colors. We wanted also to try coloring the whole key instead of just the border, or not having any highlight at all. But once you click on the key, a certain color pops up, so you know the area that corresponds to this key.
Okay, so also, did you consider using any other methods, instruments beyond the NASA TLX in terms of the qualitative? Because it would be interesting to understand the detailed approach. Did people try to make patterns and identify the colors with specific patterns? There's no open-ended questions in the NASA
no.
TLX, so
but
you can't really go into depth about.
We had another questionnaire that users rated on 4 dimensions. The questions were not open-ended. It was 12 questions, 3 questions per dimension. But perhaps adding an open-ended would also provide more insights.
Or an interview.
It was a remote study, so we didn't have them face-to-face. We didn't want to make them come to the lab. So we had the drawbacks of a remote in the wild study. Thank you.
Very much. So maybe they can use your evaluator, your virtual evaluator.
Okay. Andreas, no.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, Ioulia.